Hello, my lovelies. Welcome back to Little Wins Podcast. Today, I want to talk about something that has been sitting on my heart for a while, and I know I'm not the only one who feels this way. The timeline pressure we face, especially as women. That quiet pressure that tells you that by a certain age, your life should look a certain way. By 25, you should have figured out your career. By 30, you should be married, settled, thriving, glowing, healed, financially stable, and somehow still have a flat tummy. By 35, you should own a home, have multiple streams of income, know exactly who you are and what you want, and be living in your soft life era without stress. And if your life doesn't look like this, there's that tiny voice that creeps in and says, you are behind. But today I want to gently challenge that voice. Because what if you're not behind? What if your life has just taken a different route? What if you're not late? What if, like me, you are rebuilding? What if you are recovering? What if you are becoming? So, this episode is for the woman who feels like everyone else has moved ahead and she's still trying to gather the pieces. It is for the woman who has to start over, the woman who had to survive things she does not always talk about, the woman who is doing her best but sometimes still feels like she's not where she should be. So, let's talk about it. The first thing is to identify where timeline pressure comes from. I think timeline pressure starts very early in life when we're still young as kids. People start asking questions that make life sound like a straight line. Questions like, what do you want to be when you grow up? When are you getting married? When are you having kids? When are you having another kid? When are you buying a house? When are you going for that promotion? When are you settling down properly? It's always when. And before you realize it, you're measuring your life and your achievements by an invisible deadline. You start thinking, oh, by now I should have done this. By now I should have achieved it. By now I should be further ahead. And the hard part is that the world will give you evidence to support that pressure. I mean, you open Instagram and someone has bought a house. Someone is celebrating 10 years of marriage. Someone is launching a business. Someone is having their third child. Someone is traveling the world. Someone is posting the soft life content in a luxury hotel bathroom. And hear me out. There's nothing wrong with celebrating people. We should celebrate people. Other people's joy is not the enemy. But sometimes when you're already feeling fragile, someone else's milestone can feel like a mirror showing you everything you think you do not have yet. And that's where comparison starts whispering. And you know what they say, comparison is a thief of joy. It doesn't start loudly at first, just quietly. You start saying things like, look at them. They're younger than me. They have done more than I have. They are happier than I am. They are more stable than I am. They did that properly. And I am behind. And if you're not careful, you can start using someone else's life as evidence against your own. Now, what we have to remember every day, and what I try to remind myself every day, is life is not a straight line. Life is not as linear as we were made to believe. It's not always school, job, marriage, house, children, financial stability, and happy ever after. Sometimes it's school, then survival. Sometimes it's marriage, then heartbreak. Sometimes it's motherhood, then loneliness. Sometimes you get the career and then you burn out. Sometimes it's starting again when you thought you've settled. Sometimes it's rebuilding at an age where you thought you should be resting. And that does not mean you failed. It means life happened. There are things that happen to us that change our timeline completely, like a relationship ending, immigration. I mean, I'm an immigrant, so I know how much moving to a new country can alter the course of your life. Motherhood can change the timeline. Health challenges can change the timeline. Financial setbacks, grief, burnout, all these are things that can affect the timeline you thought you've mapped out thoroughly. And yet, we still judge ourselves as if we had the same starting point, the same support system, the same resources, the same emotional capacity, and the same road as everyone else. But we do not. Everyone's life is different. Some people have help, some people have a village behind them, some people have financial support, some people have emotional support, some people had early stability, and some people did not have to heal while building. And I think that is something we need to be more honest about, because sometimes it's not that you're behind, it's just that you're carrying more. Sometimes it's not that you're lazy, you are just overwhelmed by the sheer amount of responsibilities and things that need sorting out. It's not that you're inconsistent, you are exhausted. And it's not that you're failing, it's just that you're doing something difficult with very little support, and acknowledging that matters. It helps you be a little kinder to yourself. There's a particular pressure about being a woman in your 30s, and I think every woman in her 30s out there will agree with me. This pressure comes from the fact that people act like your 30s are both your prime and your deadline. They tell you this is your time, this is your moment. But then also they tell you, you've got to be careful, time is going. It's such a strange emotional space to live in. And to be honest, it can be very confusing. You are expected to be confident because, you're old enough, but then not too bold because you've not seen it all. You are to be ambitious, but still be soft. You are to be independent as a woman, but still be desirable, especially if you're not in a long term relationship or marriage. You don't want to scare the men away. You are supposed to be a good mother who is always there for the kids, but make sure you're not consumed by motherhood and you don't make it your only identity. You're supposed to be career driven, but yeah, you still have to do all the things at home so you don't come off like a neglectful woman. You're supposed to be attractive, but you can't be vain, right? You have to have substance. You're supposed to be content, but still pursuing your goals and still seeking improvement. It's just all exhausting. Keeping track of it all is truly exhausting. And if you're a mother, the pressure gets even louder because now you're not just thinking about your own timeline, you're also thinking about your child's future and their progress. You're thinking about school, childcare, bills, routine, stability, emotional presence, and somehow still trying to remember who you are outside of being a mother, outside of being needed all the time. And if you're like me, you're an immigrant mother, oh, that comes with another layer. Because sometimes you're building without a village, the support system is not there. You are parenting without the extra pair of hands, no grandparents, no aunties, no uncles showing up to help. You're figuring out systems you did not grow up in. You're trying to create stability in a place that feels very unfamiliar. And then you look around and wonder why you feel so tired all the time. Of course, you'll be tired. You're not just living, you're building, you're adapting, you're healing, you're parenting, you're working and trying to become the woman of your dreams all at once. That's a lot. That's a whole lot. And we have to remember that. And even though we're encouraged to evolve, we're encouraged to become better version of ourselves, sometimes there's a shame and stigma that is attached to starting over. And I think that's one of the hardest parts of timeline pressure. Starting over can feel embarrassing. Starting over after a relationship ends, starting over financially, starting over emotionally, starting over in your career. Starting over creatively, starting over with confidence, starting over with your body, your faith, your dreams. There's a part of you that thinks, I should not be here again. I should have gone past this point. I should not be learning myself again. I should not be in a place where I'm trying to rebuild my confidence again. I should not be trying to save money from the scratch again. I should have healed by now. But starting over is not shameful, and it shouldn't feel shameful. Sometimes the bravest thing you will ever do is starting over, because it simply means you did not stay where you were broken. It means you did not give up on yourself completely. It means something in you still believes there is more to you than what you have now. And I think we need to give ourselves more credit for the courage it takes to start over. It takes a whole amount of courage to start over, especially when nobody's clapping for you, nobody's cheering you on. Sometimes you get the unkind statements, the looks, even from people you trust, from your nearest and dearest. Sometimes the little win is not the big announcement. You might not have the house keys, the ring, the promotion, the viral video, the transformation video, but you do have a little win, and that is waking up and trying again. Sometimes the little win is paying one bill, sending that email, making appointment, cooking one proper meal, editing and posting that video. That is your little win, and that deserves celebration. Another thing we have to remind ourselves of: other people's timelines are not instructions. They are not the syllabus. They are not the marking scheme. They are not proof that you are failing. They are just other people's life. And people rarely show the full cost of their own timeline. You see someone's marriage on Instagram or TikTok, but not know what they are carrying inside. You see someone's house, but you don't know the pressure behind the mortgage. You don't know how long it took them to save for that house. You see someone's career. It looks all shiny and glittery, but you don't know the burnout that comes with it. You see someone's soft life and luxury life, but you don't know the private sacrifices they've had to make. And even if their joy is real, even if they don't have the burnouts, the sacrifices, and the pressure, it still does not mean yours is wrong. Their blessing is not your punishment. Their progress is not holding you back. Someone else being chosen does not mean you were rejected by life. Someone else arriving does not mean you're lost or that you will not arrive at your own destination. Someone else building faster does not mean you're building nothing. You are allowed to honor your own pace. I'll say that again. You should honor your own pace. I have come to a point in my life where I am redefining success for myself. We should come to a point in our life where we sit down, have an honest conversation with ourselves, and ask ourselves, what does success mean for me? Not what Instagram says, not what family says, not what friends are saying, but what does it mean to you and for you? What does success look for the season you're actually in? Because sometimes success is not expansion. Sometimes success is stability. Sometimes success is not doing more. Sometimes it is recovering. It's not looking busy and booked. Sometimes it's having peace in your home. Sometimes success is not proving every other person wrong. Sometimes it's finally needing not to prove anything. Coming to that point, you don't need to prove anything to anybody. For me, I am learning that success can be quiet, which is why this podcast is called Little Wins. Success can be consistency, safety, being present with my child, making something I am proud of. Sometimes success can mean choosing myself in little ways, a routine that supports me and supports my life in the present. Success can be not abandoning myself or giving up when life feels heavy. And I think when you start defining success for yourself, the pressure loses its power over you because you stop chasing a life that only looks good from the outside and you start building a life that actually feels livable, a life that works for you. And that is the goal. Not just to look like you're winning, but to feel like you're coming back to yourself. What will I tell the woman who feels behind? I will tell you what I tell myself in those moments when I feel behind, when I feel that voice of timeline pressure start speaking again. And I say to myself, you are not behind, you're living a life with context. There are chapters people do not know, battles I have survived quietly, responsibilities I carry every day, disappointments I've had to recover from, versions of me that had to die so that this version could still exist. So please do not measure your success without considering what it costs you to keep going. You may not be where you want to be yet, but you're not where you used to be, and that really matters. Maybe you're not late. Maybe you're being rebuilt properly. Maybe you're learning lessons that your future self will need. Maybe the slower route is still taking you somewhere meaningful. And maybe, just maybe, the life you're building now will be more honest than the life you thought you were supposed to have. So, here are a few questions I want to leave you with. Not a homework, just a gentle reflection. Where am I putting pressure on myself because of age? Whose timeline am I secretly comparing myself to? What part of my life am I judging without compassion? What have I survived that I'm not giving myself credit for? What will success look like for this season, not the fantasy version of my life? What is one little win I can acknowledge today? Because sometimes we are so focused on the big milestones that we miss the evidence of growth right in front of us. You may not have everything figured out, and frankly, who does? You may not be exactly where you want to be, but you are here. You are trying. You are learning. You are still becoming, and that is something worth celebrating. So today's little win is this: give yourself permission to stop treating your life like it is late. You are allowed to grow at your own pace. You are allowed to rebuild. You are allowed to start again. You are allowed to be proud of progress that nobody else can see. Your life does not have to match anyone else's timeline to be meaningful. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Little Wins Podcast. If this episode spoke to you, share it with another woman who needs the reminder that she's not behind. And as always, remember to notice the little wins because they are proof that you're still moving. I'll speak to you in the next episode. Bye.